Adam Gluntz, who is a friend of mine, and he is going to be speaking about autism and neurodiversity. Wow.
Like I said, my name is Adam Gluntz, and the first thing I'm going to say is that I am autistic. I was diagnosed with a kind of autism called Asperger's syndrome, which is it's a more mild form of autism. It means different things to different people, but I'm going to talk for a couple minutes about what it means to me. The first thing that it means is I'm very nervous in social situations. I'm not so much anymore because I've had to deal with it for so long. But there's this element that you don't necessarily know what to say, and you don't necessarily know what the right thing is to say. Another thing that's very common is people with autism or people on the spectrum don't look people in the eye. If you've ever talked to me, you'll notice that I'm looking at your mouth and not your eyes, or somewhere else in the room. But the most notorious impairment that people on the spectrum have is sensory issues. And almost everyone on the spectrum has an issue with a bright light or loud noises or clothing that doesn't feel right or feels like it's the wrong material. And so this makes life somewhat hard for autistics. And all these are challenges, but none of them are the challenge of living in a society that says it's not okay to be autistic. We live in a society where there are organizations making $21 million to cure autism because they view having an autistic child as a death. They say that that's the worst thing that could happen to them. That same corporation, that same organization, Autism Speaks, that raised $21 million to cure autism, has not spent a dime of it to benefit any autistic adults. Autistic adults are the marginalized disability, because if you're not autistic enough that you can't speak, you're not autistic enough to speak about it. And I'm just going to talk about some of the injustices of autism that go on, that these so-called advocates of autism, the voice for the voiceless, don't recognize. There is an autistic woman named Amanda Baggs. This woman is nonverbal. She cannot speak. She has never been able to use the restroom properly. She's an adult in diapers. And up until relatively recently, everyone thought that she was incapable of communicating, and she was in an institution where she was treated violently. One of these last resort institutions. She was in a place where people wondered why she was violent, because every time any person came close to her, it was an attempt to restrain her. And no one realized that when you come close to an autistic person, that might make them anxious, because there's a lot of autistics who don't like to be touched. And finally, someone got her a keyboard that would speak for her. And they discovered what an intelligent woman this was, that no one listened to, because she couldn't talk, and because she didn't look people in the face, and because she rocked back and forth all the time. Another place, the institutions are the worst. They're the absolute worst. There's places that use electroshock therapy, where the electric shocks last 2 whole seconds, and are 10 milliamperes less than the amount it takes to kill you. Judge Rotenberg Educational Center. I encourage you to look it up sometime on the internet. It is an absolute atrocity against people with disabilities. But even though that's the worst, there's an institution that every day subjugates anyone who is on the spectrum, anyone who is different, and those are the public schools.
Oh, yeah.
Where it is okay for people to bully a child for being different. And it's okay for a teacher to harass a child for holding their pencil wrong, or for not looking them in the eye. And the fact is, this bullying is okay. No one actually cares about it. And there's a reason for it. We live in a system where we have large-scale bullying. We live in a system where the whites bully the blacks, the men bully the women. So why would they stop bullying in the schools? They're training them to be a part of the system.
Right.
So we have that going on. We have the kids bullying other kids, and we have the teachers letting it happen. We have the teachers putting kids in special classrooms where they're physically forced to look you in the eye, no matter how anxious it makes you. We have educational plans that are absolutely demeaning, that simply turn you into a product to go through the system, that are trying to help you. We have behaviorism to teach you to do the right thing, because there is apparently something horribly wrong with rocking back and forth. There is something apparently very harmful about that. And then we get to the real place where the discrimination happens, the job market, where you have to say everything right, and you have to look normal, because a job isn't a right. It's a privilege reserved for people who can look someone in the eye, for people who know what to say, all the right things to say at all the right time, for people who don't have to pause before they speak, to people who can sit perfectly still, to people who don't think that having a bright light in their face is a wretched sensory overload, to people who don't jump at loud sounds. A job is a privilege in this society. But I say a job isn't a privilege. I say a job is a right. The job is a right for anyone. No matter if you feel anxious over talking to another person, a job is a right, even if you have to act a little bit strangely to deal with the fact that you're sitting in a place with very bright lights or very loud sounds. I believe that is a right. And I believe, lastly, then you have the final group of people. The people who are supposedly our friends. Like I said, Autism Speaks. They want to tell me that I'm diseased, that the way I am is not okay. And they say they're speaking for me. They say they're speaking for autistics by promoting one image of autistics. And that is the image that they're sitting in the corner, pounding their head against the wall, unable to speak. And don't get me wrong, everything I've just said applies to a low-functioning autistic too. But they don't want to talk about people like me, who are going to college and making it with very little help. And they don't want to talk about people, famous autistic people, like Albert Einstein, Isaac Newton, many of the great composers, many of the great musicians, because they want to make money. They want to make money to pay their salaries and to buy more fundraisers. The majority of money made by these organizations goes to fundraisers. These organizations silence autistic adults because they want neurotypicals to run it. People who are the right way in their minds. People who have the right nervous systems. So my call is that we end this system of neurotypical supremacy and allow for a neurodivergent community, allow for a place where a person who isn't normal in every aspect of their nervous system to be drugged into submission. A system that allows people who are not neurologically typical to have a job and to live a life with dignity. And a system that allows people who are not neurologically typical to... Sorry, I just hit a wall. A system that allows people who are neurologically typical to live with dignity. And a system that allows us our humanity. And not a system that dehumanizes us and tells us that finding out your autistic child, that putting your autistic child in a school means it's okay for you to admit in front of a national TV audience that you actually wanted to kill your child for 15 minutes. There's a video that's the Autism Speaks poster video where a woman admits in front of her autistic daughter that she thought for 15 minutes of driving off the bridge. So that's my call. My call is for humanity. My call is that I'm looked at as a person, not a diseased person